The nostalgia of affordable divers from 2018 is real, but I'm asking myself today, what is the line between quality provided for the money paid? And how do we decide what is the maximum price tag that puts us away from a watch to say no, it is not worth anymore? And I think these Japanese divers are the perfect example because they are on an ascending trend price-wise. Because in the era of shortcuts, where we can buy a king turtle for $350, an automatic micro brand with hacking, ceramic and sapphire for less than $300, or a Pagani designed submariner for less than $100, we can seriously ask ourselves if it's still worth to buy a Seiko SKX with a rudimentary movement, an Orange Monster Generation 1 or the Orient Triton for more than $400 as the latest prices are indicating. I always end up having discussions with friends of mine, Seiko fans, about the accessible Seiko prices from 2017 and 2018 compared to the latest prices, justifying that some models are simply not worth the actual prices because the watches initially weren't made with premium materials or finished at a specific level to say. And yes, I know we love SKX because this model was the most appreciated budget diver by the content creators community for so long. In fact, I know very few people that didn't own an SKX, but the rest of 90% of them did, so we can call it a very popular watch. This model, as you know, was discontinued in 2020, and since then the prices are increasing dramatically despite the huge availability. If this watch was around $220 as new a few years ago, a brand new one now jumps above $450. The Seiko Monster Generation 1 and 2 are in the same situation. Budget watches that were valued around $200 when they were released. But in time, the Generation 2 developed a hype around the enthusiast, especially the orange version, which is sold today 3 or 4 times the price of the initial and the realistic one. On the other hand, the Orient Triton aka Neptune wasn't as popular as the iconic SKX, being also made in smaller numbers compared to the 007. And as well as the previously mentioned models, it is discontinued, being replaced by a new Neptune, which is bleh. The Triton was launched in 2018 as a replacement of the Orient M-Force. They basically discontinued the robust, sporty identity of the M-Force, offering the sapphire crystal a better refined case and dial for the Triton, but keeping the predecessor's movement inside, specifically the one with a power reserve complication on a dial. So is it worth to pay for a pre-owned or a discontinued budget diver twice the price or even more? Well, let's take them one by one and see if these watches are worth or can be considered as an investment. The first iteration of the SKX was launched in 1965. The model was named 7002, being produced for only 2 years. From that particular vintage model we can spot the similar case design approach with crown guards and the crown positioning at 4 o'clock and the same 200 meters war resistance capability. Now the Seiko SKX line was launched in 1996 and across time, being developed in multiple versions and sizes, but the most popular ones were the 007, the 013 and the Pepsi version, the 009. As I perceive the SKX compared to the actual Seiko offerings, I would confirm that this model is already a vintage watch. The case design, the finishing, the movement without hacking, the printed dial and the raw finishing leads to this conclusion. The Seiko SKX007 was, in my opinion, a beautiful watch as default, and I never understood why it became the most modded diver from the planet. I mean, I understand the need to equip it with durable materials like a ceramic insert or a sapphire glass, but in my opinion, the charm of the SKX is lost once such upgrades are made. And looking at the SKX after a few years where I had the chance to experience and review tons of watches, I can say that this 007 on Jubilee, it's poetry on the wrist, because it sends the watch straight in the 90s on this combo. And I really appreciate it, but versus a realistic price range of $250 or $300, but not more. So as much as I enjoy this watch, I just can't see how I would ever pay more than $300 in great conditions plus box and papers. Because for more than $350, I can buy a Seiko King Turtle, which is a far better watch compared to the rudimentary SKX, because it has a better movement, ceramic, sapphire, refined polish and finishing, hacking and many more. which is the same case for the Seiko Monster. Great looks, decent size case, quirky, colored, great lume, but the level of the finishing and the quality of the watch remains somewhere between $200 and $300, exactly how it was valued and offered to the fans when it was launched. Now these monsters are situated between $500 and $1,000+, where the Orange Gen 2 Monster breaks the barrier of cost versus the quality provided at say up to 2 or even 3 times. So the way I built the scale value in my head, a thing is to overpay for a vintage watch which is either rare, well preserved, or the value of the original model was higher priced, and another thing is to overpay for a watch that originally was valued and made with modest materials. In fact, I'm not even sure if I do respect this rule. I mean, I paid around $750 for a vintage Bulova Equitron Astronaut, but I somehow see no realistic value in that watch. The technology of the tuning fork, the 38mm size, the champion bullet bracelet and the condition of the watch made me buy it. And last but not least, we're looking at Orient. The Triton always intrigued me, a great design and a great diver, but unfortunately didn't end up to be popular as the iconic SKX, because if we look at the shape of it, it feels very similar to the iconic 007, but apparently size-wise it wears a bit bigger, and probably that is why a lot of people ignored it. As looks, I was always impressed by this diver, but honestly, in flesh, you can spot the cut costs, quality-wise not being very far from the Orient Kamasu. So I kind of see it a bit overpriced from this point of view. This one increasing slowly but safe from $300 towards $400, even more. However, I do have to say that I love the way these practical watches can be transformed once the bracelets are removed. Just look at how good these rubbers match the color accents of these divers, not to mention the comfort provided. So if you're interested, 7 Frenzied Watches straps, the link is in the description. Now, the replacements of these watches are pretty unfortunate. The 007 it's not officially replaced by the new Seiko 5 line, even though the SKX shared exactly the characteristics of the old school Seiko 5 concept, including the movement. But people still associate the new Seiko 5 models as the predecessors of the iconic SKX007. But the way I'm used with the new Seiko, I can see in the future a premium Seiko SKX launch on the same range with the Willard and the 62 Mass models, because they did it in the past, why not in the future? And the Monster obviously was improved technologically in time, a thing that reflects in the price. The Monster reached the 4th generation now. The 3rd generation was a throwback to the first version, very similar in the dial layout but quality-wise improved. But the 4th one, I feel that this model kind of moved away from the spirit of the first 2 generations. And I'm not sure if it's because of the PVD coated bezel or because of the lollipop cyclops that breaks the rhythm of the dial. But I'm pretty sure a lot of people are waiting for the 5th generation, and this time maybe they'll be more inspired. And the Triton started as an utilitarian watch which was transformed into a diver with pedigree, ultimately transformed after 3 years into a more simplified diver that has no identity in my opinion. The Kamasu being more relevant price and size wise than the newer Neptune. And this idea kind of wraps up my thoughts for today. And in the end, I'm really curious to know, how do you see this price increase for these old school Japanese watches? Are they still worth the price asked, or they will remain stuck on the market as not being worth to buy anymore? Please let me know in the comments section. Thanks for watching, and until next time, be brave, Bob.